My name is Lucas Pope, and I created Papers, Please. Basically, Papers, Please, in one sentence, is a game where you check passports. So people come into your little booth and they give you their documents, their papers, please, and you line all those papers up on the desk and you look at them and you check your rules and you see if the documents they have match all the rules. And if they're good to go, then you let them in. You give them a green stamp. And if they're not good to go, if there's any problems with the documents, you can give them a chance to maybe correct them, or you can give them the red stamp and they're kicked out and they can't enter your country. At the time I made the game, I was working on small independent games, experimental stuff, and I had living in Japan and traveling around this area through international, basically immigration at different airports. I did it enough that it kind of came to me that what the people do when they check your passports when you go through immigration, what they're doing looks pretty interesting, and maybe I could make a game out of that. None of the bigger narrative about immigration, but just really looking at the documents, looking at your passport and looking at your face and seeing are these things matching. Normally you're the cool guy who's slipping through immigration and you're the spy or whatnot, but wouldn't it be cool if you were the one who had to catch the spy going through? For the narrative, I kind of wanted to highlight the tricky, slippery slope with bureaucracy and these issues around border control, where a lot of times it looks simple or it feels simple from wherever you are, but when you get right up close to it, it's actually very complicated. And so I don't think I was heading for any particular community, but I did want to use the medium that I had and the tools, the mechanics that I had to build an interesting story dealing with those sorts of issues. Something about interactive media that's important for me that I find attractive is that you can involve the player a lot more than you can in a traditional story or a movie or a book or something. You can get them to make decisions they wouldn't normally make, or have them do things that make them feel a little uncomfortable. And they kind of expect it to go a certain way. And that's when I throw in something that defies their expectations and makes it more interesting for them and kind of hooks them into a longer involvement or more deeper involvement in what they're doing. I kind of started out with the idea of the games I want to make are kind of the games I want to make. I'm not necessarily trying to copy other games. But there wasn't a lot of money in that. I luckily found a way into huge studios working on very big, expensive games. And I learned a lot there about making games and how to make games, how to ship games, and what's important about games. But I missed that kind of independence of making stuff that other people don't necessarily want or think they want. And so when I left the big studio to work on these small indie games again, it was liberating again to get back to experimentation and trying things that may or may not work. A game where you say you're checking passports would have been a hard sell for a team to convince a team, let's make a game where you're checking passports, or even a publisher. I didn't know you could get a Peabody for games, first off, so it's really nice to see this category. And Peabody is about stories, and I do work on games, and stories are not always critical to games. You can have great games with no story, but I do make an effort to find an interesting or fun core mechanic the player is doing, the game part of it, and combine that and merge that with an interesting narrative. So to get recognized for that is pretty great, and especially as part of a new category for Peabody's. This is a real honor for me to be kind of slotted in this way. So yeah, a real honor. I work alone, but there is a person who supports me. It's my wife, Keiko, and she has basically taken care of me for the last 9 years, and before that even, to give me the space to make games on my own terms. So if there's anybody I need to thank for specifically Papers, Please, it's her.